Unfortunately, Dante wasn't able to call him that.
Okay.
Well, that's unfortunate.
He had reasons.
It's not unfortunate.
Unjustified reasons.
Yes.
The likes of which we'll never be able to discuss in an open forum.
That I don't even know about, so that's perfectly okay.
I'm more lost than you.
Yes.
Hello, everyone! Those things are not related to what we're doing today. Okay, so I actually wrote an introduction, and I'm going to read it for real this time. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Drexel Freethought Society, the only fully recognized secular organization in Drexel University. The Drexel Freethought Society's mission is to establish and support a secular community at Drexel University for atheists, agnostics, humanists, and freethinkers. The DFS is dedicated to encouraging free thought and defending science, logic, and reason, while discouraging and responding to harmful personal beliefs, especially when they're forced on others. Every week we have a formal podcast, but we also have other meetings to view videos, have talks, and host various speakers from really around anywhere who wants to come here. This is hopefully going to become an interactive show, so please email questions or comments to drexfreethought@gmail.com. We can also be found generally at our website, drexelfreethought.org, our Twitter, Drexel Freethought, and we are on Facebook if you search for Drexel Freethought Society. I am David McDevitt, the president of Drexel Freethought Society, and today's topic is oppression.
Who doesn't like that?
I'll just sit here, because then you can actually be seen.
I thought it was this Zahi voice this time.
No, now you have to be seen, because there's not enough people.
Yeah.
Okay, so you guys just to introduce yourselves, and we'll start with opening statements. So.
Hello, my name is Colby Bastian. I'm a regular attender here at the Freethought Society podcast.
Hey, Matt. You haven't been here for like 2 months.
I used to be a regular attender.
Okay, fine.
Opening statement. It's a tricky one.
Oh yeah, we changed the entire format without telling you.
Oh, wonderful.
So now we have opening statements. So go ahead.
Huh. You go first.
Opening statement?
Well,
introduction. Hi, my name is Richard Campbell, and I am a not so regular attender of this club, and I am a IT student over at Drexel University.
Don't do a full introduction.
Yeah.
Just who you are and give an opening statement.
My opening statement about oppression is that all throughout human history there's always been oppression, and we've always been trying to either keep oppression or eliminate it altogether, which I don't think is possible.
Fair enough. Billy?
For me, oppression represents individual groups of people attempting to gain biased power over other groups and to maintain that power indefinitely.
Makes sense. Okay, we can just jump right into that. What kind of organizations or who's oppressing who? And for what reasons?
Well, generally, it's a very dynamic thing. It's any group that any group that can gain and maintain enough power to shift the social dynamic significantly in their favor over another group in general.
Yes, that actually brings up a very interesting discussion about the history of oppression. And I'm not going to delve into it too much, but...
No, go for it. We have 3 people we have to talk about.
Oh, okay. So, I mean, if you look at oppression, throughout human history, there's always been oppression, and one of the greatest examples of that is Hitler. Hitler saw that Germany's economy was...
in 6 minutes.
Hitler knew that. Brought up in any social discussion.
Hitler looked at the German economy, and he saw that the German economy was collapsing, partially because of rich Jewish people, as he called it. At least I'm Jewish, so I'm not going to say the Jews or anything, but that's what he thought it was. So he started this movement where he wanted to, he wanted to get in power and he wanted to oppose the other economic movement of the browncoats, which were the socialists of Europe, of Germany at that time. So, if anybody says to you that Hitler was a socialist,
No.
you know that that person is absolutely incorrect and is ignorant about about history.
Yeah. In all honesty, you bring up the idea that like Hitler was one of the greatest oppressors in history. It's actually not true. He just happens to be. He was at a time where there was a very delicate balance between the advance of technology, people's understanding of it, and the application of it. So, like, at that time, like, armament technology had just hit a huge peak, and it was to a point where really a lot of the world didn't have ways of dealing with it. So it was, for instance, it was very easy for some groups to get organized. Like, for instance, the Nazi Party. The Nazi Party got themselves incredibly organized very quickly with advancing technology, and then they used that to suppress other groups that hadn't yet engaged these technologies. Essentially, they were quicker on the draw, and they used that to their advantage over other groups. However, if you look back through history, many groups have actually had much more of an oppressive hand. For instance, you go back to Genghis Khan. Genghis Khan is, what is it? Something like 83% of Europe can trace their lineage back to.
83%.
It's even more than that.
Oh, sorry, yeah.
I believe it's even more.
It's just whatever it is, a ridiculously high percentage of the European population can trace their line almost directly back to the individual of Genghis Khan, because his army, pretty much the only reason that the army of Genghis Khan stopped from conquering the known world at the time was Genghis Khan himself died, and their practices were, we have to go back to the hometown of our leader in order to elect our new leader. By the time they got home and elected his son, who they were going to elect anyways, he was just like, screw it, it's going to take too long to get back, we'll be happy here. That's the only reason they stopped, was technicality and practice. And
hilariously, because of political unrest within the denominations of the actual group, because Genghis Khan's whole entire empire was split into different segments.
Exactly.
And these people were like, hey, I don't like how you're governing this place, I don't like how you're governing this place.
Exactly.
And basically all fell apart.
That kind of is one of the mechanics of oppression in general. It's essentially the idea that when you're oppressing something, I kind of think of it as like a crucible situation. You're pressing down on groups so hard that only the very hardest and the very strongest come out of it, to the point where they explode back. You essentially push something so hard that there's nothing left for it to do but push back at you until you break.
And
until one of you break.
And hilariously enough, if you look at Russia's history before it actually became quote-unquote Russia...
Yeah, before it was the USSR.
Yeah, before it was even the USSR or named Russia itself.
Yeah.
There was a guy that owned like a little part of land of Russia, but it wasn't Russia at that time.
In the Russian area.
Yeah, in the Russian area, and the Mongols have, at least a certain segment of the Mongols have oppressed this Russian group. And they said, hey, you're allowed to keep your land, just give us money. Give us, like, money. It was like a tax. Eventually, this guy got so pissed off, he was like, you're done! Go away! And that's exactly what you're talking about.
This really comes down to a psychological aspect. It's the idea that, we were actually just talking about it earlier, the prison experiments that they did, the idea that power corrupts.
Stanford prison experiments.
Yeah, the Stanford prison experiments essentially prove that anyone with power will be an unjustified, inglorious asshole at every opportunity. And it's ridiculous and horrible, but the vast majority of the population, everyone that they were able to find for the experiment at least...
They had to stop the experiment because they were torturing the prisoners too badly.
Yeah, I remember that.
Some of the prisoners were trying to commit suicide.
Yeah.
And the experiment only went on for...
like 3 days or something?
Yeah, it was. I think it was like not even a week yet.
Yeah, it was just... But on a larger scale, really large scale social sciences are just applied psychology in a way. Like it just becomes a slightly different dynamic when you have groups of people.
And I mean, feel free to argue this point.
All right.
Okay, but you know, I have a theory about power and how we just want power as individuals. You might think you're the most docile person out of everybody else, but when it comes down to it, if we are given power, like Lenin actually had a good idea. Lenin actually had a good idea how he was going to help people, but once he got the power,
exactly. It's the idea that power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely.
I don't understand why.
I don't get it either, but, okay, I understand even if I don't get it.
And
I understand why it happens, I just...
Well, then explore that. Why does having power lend itself to oppression?
It's the idea that when you have power, it's much easier to justify your actions. Under the idea that I am the one in charge, therefore, by this token, what I think and what I want are the better idea, for one reason or another. And that idea is very dangerous, because it's essentially a slippery slope argument, but it's been shown in psychology that is how the human mind works. We make small concessions continuously until there are no concessions left to make, and there is nothing left but we are right, because we are who we are.
I would also like to point this out. A lot of people think that money is power. I would argue that money is not power, and money is just a attribute to a certain sense of power.
Money is really representative. Money is a system that really it's just a way that we use to make it easier to keep track of power. But money itself has no real value unless we give it value. It's the basis of every economic system.
Have you ever been hit with a stack of money?
Not the point.
Those things are heavy.
Not the point. But money is representative of power.
But if not money, then what is? Like where's your thought going?
Well, I mean, in a capitalist society, I guess you could say that money is the easiest representative of power, because major corporations and stuff, they hold so much money, and they're able to do almost anything. That can be argued.
That actually does bring up a very interesting point.
But the power over people is actually real power. Let's see the President of the United States. A lot of people like him, a lot of people don't, like myself. And why? And why is he breaking so many constitutional laws like people say he is? Because he has power over people.
Now with that idea, it does come down to the fact that when you're in a position of power, you essentially have the chance finally to go, I can finally make the things happen that I think are right. So it can cause, in two different instances, it can cause sort of a backlash where you're like, do all the things that I think are right just because I think that they're right. And it can be a very short-sighted instance where you're just like, I have all this power and I'm going to do everything I ever wanted to do with it. And then it goes into what I was talking about before, the idea that you make small concessions to essentially bullshit rationalizations to justify the things that you want.
And there's also the idea that Barack Obama is not actually doing this for his own inhibitions, but because he got money from donors, and if he stole the money from the donors and stabbed them in the back, then it is pretty reasonable to say that Barack Obama might be hunted down by these entities that gave him money.
I would like to point out that the Drexel Freethought Society has no defined political agenda. Just Richard.
But all become liberals.
One thing that I did want to point out, like you were saying, you brought up specifically that in a capitalist system, money does represent power. That's actually a very interesting idea that you bring up. It's the idea that where does power lie? and that's really encompassed in different social structures. Well, if I can do one quick. Okay, I'm going to lay the framework for this and then let David continue. It's the idea that power is very dynamic, and the basis of power is very different depending on social structure and social situations. For instance, capitalist societies, it is money. In something like a socialistic society, it is position. For instance, like in Japan. Japan has a very interesting social structure where their social structure is based almost entirely on, what is the word for it? Seniority. They have an incredible respect for seniority, whether it be age or within a company or within a family. It's all about seniority and inheritance in power and responsibility.
I thought you were going to go for India.
India as well, but no.
System.
Yes, the caste system in India is another very good one.
Do they still have a caste system?
Yeah, they really do.
Okay.
A lot of theirs is interestingly based on, for them, their spiritual belief that
Reincarnation.
in reincarnation, and for them it comes through in the fact that if
saying
you are born...
Their belief in nonsense.
I'm not saying that. I'm saying that where the ideas draw from is that for most people in India and the society of India, the idea is that you are born into a situation deserving of your past life. So if you are a good person, you will be born into a good situation. So for them, it's
how like destructive that is?
I do, but it's the idea of like
so
if you are
apparently invented by the people who are already in power.
It's like if you are born poor, it's because you were a bad person in your previous life, so you deserve to be poor. If I am rich, it's because I was a good person in my previous life, so I deserve to be rich. And this should never change because the world will work itself out by reincarnation. But if I'm rich, I deserve to be more rich.
It's apparently just saying, shut up, poor people, I want to stay rich.
Exactly.
But I'd like to also argue that not all religions or philosophies are bad.
No, I'm not arguing good or bad. I'm saying that the structure of your philosophy, religion, society, whatever it is, shapes how power is transferred, how it's represented, and where it's essentially how it culminates, and what it allows you to do in specific societies.
Yeah, though I want to reiterate / clarify, like the idea of reincarnation, as we've been discussing, it appears to just be a transparent ploy of people that are already in power deciding they want to stay in power
and want their lineage to stay in power,
and creating an idea that okay, so this is justification for keeping the power that they have. So this is kind of what the Drexel Freethought Society stands for, is trying to rail against beliefs that are just harmful to people. Anywho, what I was going to say, the reason I partially interrupted you is because my thing segues nicely into yours.
Hi, Arthur. Hi.
Okay. Let's see. It's power comes from ideas.
Yes.
Because if you're a lonely little man, a weak little man who has 1,000 people that constantly do everything that they say, then you're a powerful person. And then the concept of money is just an idea.
Exactly.
So it's like if you have an idea that controls a society, then you're powerful.
It's like power exists in two forms, really. It exists in the physical and psychological, like the idea that you can literally impose yourself on another person by, say, talking to them and making them feel small and feel bad, or by physically beating on them, however, like that's like a physical power.
What about the threat of those things? Because that's basically all the only reason the government can control anybody is because it's like, we could stick the army on you.
Yeah.
I'd also like...
okay, but then there is the opposite kind of power, which is, like social power, where it's for instance, like, I am better than you, societally.
That's a bold thing to say, Colby.
Well, no, we're not going into that right now. It just, to me, it seems like there are these different categories of power. There is like physical ability to be more powerful, and then there is societal power, through a social structure or
Money.
whatever structure. We actually went through that. Money
just represents.
money is a representative power. Specifically, at least I was saying how power is different, and specifically how power is represented is different depending on your society, your religion, things like that. For instance, in a capitalist society, money equals power, or money represents power. The more money you have, the more power you have. Whereas in a system, say, as Japan, instead of money, they tend to represent seniority or superiority in that fashion. And we went through a couple different ones like that.
It doesn't matter.
But yeah, we've already gone through that one.
I'd also like to throw in a paraphrase from a quote that Lenin had once said, and this has to deal with physical power. Yes, yes. I'd like to throw in a paraphrase. Lenin once said, "One man with a gun can hold power over 100 men without any weapons at all." Paraphrase.
Yeah, but the idea is that, like,
Let him finish.
I think that was
No, that was it.
Yeah. Again, the idea is there is like that one person with a gun can control the 100 because essentially no one wants to be the one or the 40 people who he has enough bullets to kill.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Until someone can like organize the people and essentially go, this isn't right. 40 of us are worth the other 60 people getting out. Let's attack. That kind of thing.
Then that brings the whole entire ethical reason of which ethical situation are we going to believe in? Are we going to believe in for the greater good, or are we going to believe in this is right all the time and this is wrong all the time?
The idea of ethics is incredibly dynamic. It is just what people decide at a period in time.
Well, I'd also like to argue that the fact that I believe, at least, that ethics, to the most point, is just a huge gray area.
Generally, yes.
Generally, not all the time, but generally.
Ethics are something that's incredibly difficult and tricky because you have every single person in the world's perspective on it. Really.
Yeah.
Asa, introduce yourself and say something.
Come where the camera can see you.
It's okay, the camera doesn't need to see me.
Also, we have my
we can definitely hear you though. It's a very good one.
Modern technology, so exciting. But I'm Aksa, I'm the secretary.
Yay.
And oppression, that's what we're talking about? That's what I read?
Oppression, yeah.
Okay, just making sure.
Do you have a particular opening comment about oppression?
Well, not really oppression, because I think, like, in the society that we live in like America, we're not as oppressed in some other societies where, like, there's religious influences, there's, like, the whole male domination over females, and I don't know, I don't really think there's a whole lot of oppression going on over here, other than, like, maybe socioeconomic.
At the same time, that's the same thing we came back to before. In the society we live in, money is power. Therefore, socioeconomic oppression is, for this system, the ultimate form of oppression.
I would disagree.
Really?
We are the 99%.
But it's the idea.
No, I mean, partially. Obviously, socioeconomic oppression is very troubling.
Yeah, and
it harms all of the country.
Yeah.
Because I'm pretty sure if it's 99%, I'll just round up to all of it.
Yeah.
Why is my phone going off? Oh, okay. No. There are still large groups of people that are being horribly oppressed.
Yeah.
Springs to mind, women are still being really oppressed. Homosexuals are being horribly oppressed.
Now, that's one...
There's still, like, rampant racism.
Yeah.
Why are we still racist?
I don't get it.
But I feel like we've made, like, huge leaps
Of course
in
we have.
certain aspects. And with the whole female thing, I don't think we're that oppressed. Like, honestly, I don't.
Not anymore.
I agree.
We're much better. Women can effectively get any job that they want.
Except for the glass ceiling.
Yeah,
that's what I'm talking about. There's
but
still
again,
generally a glass ceiling.
But that goes back to the entire idea.
People.
Sorry, I apologize.
Now you can talk.
That goes back to, again, the idea of socioeconomic barrier. You know, there are groups that are not allowed to be in this top echelon of control and power. Be it women, be it black people, be it any group that the top controlling hierarchy deems not worth it.
But honestly, I really don't think that with the whole like female thing that you had like the only place that I can't think that a female cannot reach at this time is president. You have executives that are female. You have like supreme justices. You have secretaries, like Secretary of State, Secretaries of Defense.
Like we've always had secretaries that are women.
You know what I mean? Like in a really high position.
I'd I'd like to play the devil's advocate. To the point where
these are not Richard's actual opinions. Go on.
The thing is that women are sort of oppressed by society in a way, because I mean a lot of men like men that were raised at a certain time period will look at women like they're different from them.
But now it's not the same. Like, I'm sorry, I don't mean to talk over you.
Finish your comment first.
And again, this has to deal with like the culture that we created back in the 1950s, and it's basically trickling down to now, where some people still hold that ideology, and maybe even some people of our age hold that ideology still.
Well, I'm saying if people our age are still holding that ideology, then there's something seriously wrong with you, and you need to get the fuck over yourself.
I believe that. On the internet. Again, I'm being the devil's advocate.
If I can bring something up here, though, that whole thing is a very good point. You bring up the 50s in particular. The 50s were a very, very weird social time for America, because what happened was after World War II ended, America took an incredibly different branch than the rest of the world did. Economically, what happened was all of the world was ramped up for wartime production. Every country in the world was at maximum capacity. The rest of the world, generally, scaled themselves back to meet their needs. America decided, you know what? We're going to produce just as much stuff as we did before. We just need to make people want it. So the idea of, during the 40s and into the 50s actually, the women's rights movements had an enormous push, to the point where they were honestly where they were probably in the early to mid 90s, but what happened was when the 50s came around,
we invented the dotted housewife. Yeah,
we invented the idea of the old-fashioned housewife in the 50s to sell kitchen appliances.
The wifey.
Yeah.
The spun dress with the poofy hair and the apron.
That was invented for to sell refrigerator and stove ads. That was it. But the entire American structure that we know today was economically, politically, socially was created in the 40s to 50s. And I've actually seen a lot of things like this in popular entertainment. Like, it's personified in a lot of ways. Like, one of them was, I saw an article that was showing someone was doing a movie review of the movie Snow White and the Huntsman from a few months ago, and well, I didn't either, but they tried to submit this review to a newspaper. The editor of the newspaper, the person in charge of it, wrote back saying he would not allow reviews of such unethical movies in his paper. And it was unethical because it showed women in a dominant role, and this was completely unethical. And for women to be dominant over men was the worst type of atrocity to be this by society.
Interesting.
No.
Who are these guys?
No,
I don't know, but these people exist.
This is going to be a facetious comment to a bit. I almost guarantee that guy was a Christian.
Or Muslim.
Interestingly...
No, but I don't bring that up just because I don't happen to like those religions. It's just...
I'm of that religion.
Hey, you're allowed to believe whatever you want, but your religion is evil.
My religion is not evil. The core concepts are not evil.
Okay, everyone's
kill everybody?
No, that
Every
is not
religion in
the
the world
core
has done something terrible in their life. There is no doubt about that. But what their message is behind whatever they're supposed to be doing, they believe in being good and all that shit.
No, like, not even that.
You either.
If you look at what the message is supposed to, people...
What is it supposed to be? Is it supposed to be kill everybody because the
No,
book says
not
so?
at all.
Or love everybody because the
Well,
book
you
says
can
so?
really,
Both
you
are
can-
justified.
you
That's the problem.
you can really take...
You can look at whatever you want. You can pick whatever you want out, because everyone has a bias.
Yes, but it gives clear instructions to kill people for the sake of the religion.
Well, I'd like to argue
And you
for
might not look
Yes.
at that part, but
And
people,
good for
bad
you.
people exist. Bad people will take those bad parts and internalize them and use them as justification.
Or good people will take those bad parts and internalize them and use them.
Yeah, that's true.
I
don't believe in killing unnecessarily. If you have to defend yourself, I'm all for it, but...
Yes, but because somebody is...
There are good parts, there are bad parts, I'm not going to disagree with that, but if you just go for whatever the bad stuff is, then
The
you're being
bad
biased.
stuff is justified by the good stuff.
I'd like to
That's the problem that I have with religion.
Essentially what it says is, yes, there are bad things in this book, but there are good things as well. Therefore, I'm going to use the bad stuff, and then when you try to say I'm being bad, I'm just going to look to the good stuff and say, this makes it all okay. That's the problem with religion in general.
I'd like to argue for...
And this is a gigantic segue.
I'd like to argue for Axe's point, that really any religion, you will look at the text and you will read it, and you will say, hey, this says this.
You get out of anything.
I think we should kill people. Or, hey, this says this, so I think we should all hug each other. Like, it could be taken either way, and that's the problem with religions and philosophies, is that you look at something, and you're going to look at it, and you're going to have your own individual ideology of what your religion should be.
Exactly.
So,
You
in a
take
way,
what you want out of it.
But
no
that's
matter
not
what.
necessarily
in a way,
true.
we're all individuals in our religion. Like individualistic gods.
No, if you live in a country where people, I'm just going to use America and use the Bible because that's what we got here. We're supposed to be multicultural, but that's real funny.
We're not.
Yeah, so in Christian America, if somebody picks up the book and says like, oh, so this is that Bible that everybody knows about and that everyone believes in so strongly and is the absolute Word of God, therefore I should believe everything it says, open to random page. If my neighbors believe in a God other than mine, then I should go and kill them. Well, if it's in the book, I should follow it. That happens all the time.
Well, that's wrong.
I agree, but it's just as justified as opening up and saying, oh, I should love my neighbor? Okay. There's the same level of justification.
Also, you have to look at the time period and the context under which...
You're using you're special pleading. I've never come into contact with this before. There's a logical fallacy called special pleading.
What is that?
What I believe is cool and fine, but everyone else is just wrong.
I'm not saying that.
It's pleading for your particular circumstance,
All
or
I'm
your
saying-
particular part of the book that you're talking about.
No, I'm not saying that, like, everything's good, everything's bad, or what I believe is better than someone else's belief. I'm not saying that. All I'm saying is you have to look at the context under which these books, or whatever you want to call them, were, like,
There are
different
people
parts.
that take it word for word.
Yeah,
No,
but that was a
act on
totally
it.
different time period.
It doesn't matter.
No, I'd like to argue.
There's no other. Is there any other way to take? If a person believes in any other god than me, you should go to that town, kill every man, woman, and child, horse and ass, and then burn the place to the ground.
Because those are the instructions in multiple religious books.
Now I'd like to argue against
enough.
point.
I need to read more.
I recommend it. The
No.
greatest cure to religious belief is actually reading the book about the religion.
No, I'd like to argue against Axe's point that it depends on the time period that they wrote that, because in a way, I mean, you have science. This says this is right at that certain time period. Oh, let's heal people with leeches. Now we know that it's untrue. You have to
now we
keep...
know we only should do that really specific circumstance.
Yes. Now, when you look at the Bible or Quran or the Bhagavad Gita or whatever you're looking at, you're saying
What's the
that
last one?
Bhagavad Gita.
It's Hinduism.
It's
Oh,
Hindu.
okay, thank you.
And you're looking at it and you're reading it word for word. This was made many years ago,
And
it never
It's the oldest
progressed.
living religion right now.
What?
Hinduism?
It's Hinduism, yeah.
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 Good for them.
But the problem is
Finish your
people.
thought. Stop talking.
See, the problem is that people see this and they say, oh, this is the absolute undeniable truth and I should always stick to this. That's the problem. You should always progress due to the social context of the situation.
Because people are lazy. They want absolute truth, so they don't have to think in situations. They don't even want a choice between this or this. They want just this.
Well, you were given a brain. I'm sorry. You want to use it?
Yes, I do, but people don't. The vast majority of people do not want this.
To quote Men in Black here, a person is smart, people are dumb.
No, a person is smart. People are dumb, panicky, irrational animals, and you all know it.
Yes, indeed.
Well, what was I forget who actually said it, but it's just like, in a sane world, we would have bad people doing bad things and good people doing good things. But to make a good person do bad things, it requires religion.
I disagree with that, but I understand it.
Okay, how are you living such a happy life?
No,
I don't ask any questions that I don't want to know the answer to.
I do the idea of it is, from what I take it, is you need
it
to...
requires rational belief.
Yeah, you need to justify bad things to good people, and in order to justify bad things, you generally need to do it irrationally, which religion is based on. So religion is the simplest way.
How do you even get over to that?
I don't know.
Well,
oppression.
To use it, oppression.
Okay,
religion is a very simple, easy method.
Point.
Religion is a very common and easy method for oppression. We talked about earlier in India. The way the reincarnation system is used to oppress the caste system.
Mm-hmm.
Is the idea
people in bad situations and make sure you never have to help them because they deserve to be that way.
Exactly. If you're born poor, you deserve to be poor because you were a bad person in your last life. We were born rich, which means we were good people in our last life. So you shouldn't argue with us.
We understand, but the
It's fun to say.
There's pretty much every religion I can think of at the moment has some variation of you are born unclean and we have the way to cure you for a price.
The forbidden fruit.
The forbidden fruit, you are born unclean, you have to find salvation, and we can help you for a price.
Yes.
So this is like a definition of like a really creepy kind of oppressive like doctrine.
And sort of like, love me, or I will put you in hell forever.
Yeah, it is the idea of absolute threat. It's like, we are your only salvation, and if you argue with us, you are instantly damned, and congratulations, have fun burning in hell for all of eternity.
If you want to go deeper into it, one of the most fundamental rights that people should have is the right to their own mind and their own privacy.
Mm-hmm.
The big monotheistic religions are as good old Hitchens would say, the ultimate form of totalitarianism. You have absolutely no privacy. God is with you all the time, knows what you think. You can commit thought crimes. You can be punished forever.
I think we all commit thought crimes. Quite often.
No, but the idea of totalitarianism is if you think this, you will be punished. The idea of religion is an absolution of that. If you think it, God instantly knows. Therefore, you are actually punished for your thoughts, which is currently impossible in a human system. We're getting there, but
it's not impossible. In the big totalitarian countries, if you are caught thinking about something, you will be killed. Hitchens, during his lifetime, was able to visit like the big totalitarian countries, and I'll be done in a second.
I'm confused.
Well, then ask your question real quick.
Like, how does the country know what you're thinking?
Well, I mean,
if you speak of it.
It's like thinking, not literally thinking, but it's like thoughts govern actions, I guess.
Okay.
So anyway, one thing. Hitchens was able to visit a lot of the really big totalitarian countries near the end of his lifetime. I guess whatever, before he died.
Oh, that's right, Hitchens did that.
And last year, like a year and a half ago, fool. Okay, so. And he was able to describe the kind of things that he saw. You were only allowed to worship, like, the dear leader or the great leader. Every moment of your life was controlled by this person.
Or both.
But you see, even in those horrible, oppressive world, you can die and get out of it. In religious belief, you can't. When you die, the real oppression starts. Because then you're not just overseen by a God character, you become part of him. and they control every single action you'll ever have for the rest of existence.
You don't become part of him, you're just judged by him. You're his creation.
Oh, that's better.
I'd also like to bring up
Yeah, oppressive. Go on.
I'd also like to bring up the point that there are two authors that probably most of us know here.
I don't.
Huxley and the guy that wrote 1984.
What is Huxley, right?
Huxley. He wrote A Brand New World.
A
Yeah.
Brave New World.
A Brave New World.
A Brave New World in 1984 was written by Orwell?
George
Yeah,
Orwell. And those
Okay,
are the
yeah.
two different types of oppression that we have all over the world. Now, you can easily look at North Korea, 1984.
Yeah.
You look over at the United States, what do you see? Brave New
New
World. Why?
Well, it's very simple. Like I said before, all these things, social sciences, social changes, it's just psychology applied on a grand scale. And psychology never really changes. People are people, and they have been for thousands of years. Our brains haven't changed enough yet. So, just going back 50 or 100 years, those people saw what people were like, and they were good enough at understanding it to be able to know what was going to happen later, because they were seeing it, or they had seen it, or they understood it from the past. No society is really any different from anyone that's already existed yet.
There's actually a very interesting study about that, about the neurology of humans versus chimpanzees.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, human children were given this box, and this box was just opaque, completely opaque. And what they had to do was that the scientists came up to the children, the human children, and they said, here's a box. What you're supposed to do is you're supposed to knock twice at the top of the box, and then you'll get candy. So they did that to the children. The children knocked twice, and they got the candy. Next thing, they looked at the chimpanzees. They did the same thing. But when the scientists came up to the human children and they said, okay, here's your box, and it was a clear box, and it was automatically known that you didn't have to knock twice. But the human children knocked twice, got the candy. Chimpanzees just got the candy. And that just shows you how susceptible
human beings are to...
How susceptible human beings are to litigation.
Yeah.
I think that's the right word.
Yeah, just how easily we are trained to do things a specific way.
And I can explain why. Chimpanzees are more wild, I guess. So they have a lot more threats that they have to be able to deal with really early. So they really have to see the world as it is and not be taken in so much by authority.
Yeah.
Humans don't. Humans are the weakest little babies ever.
That is actually an
I'm not
interesting
done
point.
talking.
Oh, I'm sorry. It seems like you were done.
Finish your thought, damn it.
Thank you, Joe. Okay, so humans aren't like this at all. Humans need constant reassurance, constant repetition of rules and regulations, especially when they're growing up. And children will follow blindly for the first couple of years of their life. No matter what they're saying. If they say, knock on the wall 6 times, then run in a circle and you'll get breakfast, they'll do that every single day.
It's okay, Timmy.
annoying.
You're a good person. Good, Timmy.
That actually is. I'll get into that later. But that same idea is, they actually did experiments to see, the development cycle of humans versus several different animals, but chimpanzees in particular. And it was chimpanzees were almost universally ahead of human children until the age of 3. At that point, it just skyrocketed. The humans skyrocketed ahead of the chimpanzees, but until then, chimpanzees were just ridiculously better at it.
Their survival. Our children survive because of the incredible social structures we create. So that's why if you're a pregnant woman caught in the jungle, you're going to die. You're just going to die so much. If you're a pregnant chimp in the jungle, whatever.
I'm 5.
Either that, or you give birth to a child, eat most of it, and then kill prey with the rest of it.
Yeah.
Chimps are evil.
Yeah, chimps are pretty despicable.
Just want to
David,
ask.
do you have an evil monkey in your closet that you're not telling us about?
No.
He
Are
said
you
it
sure?
so forlornly, like he wished there was.
I'd just like to ask this question in the group. I myself have Asperger's syndrome, which is social disorder, basically. My brain is wired a different way, where I am able to do more things than become social. Do you think, in a way, that Asperger's or any other form of autism could be a benefit to human beings?
It'd be better being alone.
Yeah, it's a very
That's
tricky
helpful.
it's a very tricky balance, because humans are, for the most part, such social creatures that in a social structure it's very difficult to have a disorder like that, because it's very difficult to fit into that structure that so many other people use, just almost unthinkingly and inherently.
The world is about who you know.
Yeah, and
Unfortunately.
yeah.
I wouldn't say unfortunately.
I actually want to
Yeah, but
come back to something that you were saying, if I may.
Arthur seems flustered. Look at that flustered face.
That's fluster.
Go on.
No, I was thinking, isn't that can be considered another form of oppression? Because like if you don't know the right people, then
Oh, yeah.
you won't get ahead in life.
That goes right into the social economic thing.
Yep.
It's just socioeconomic. It's the socio part. If you don't know the right kind of people, then it's hard to get jobs. You have to go through much more difficult ways to get education, to get money, to get anything. But if you know the right people, just be like, oh yeah, I know you, here's a job.
Interesting.
Here's some money to start your own business. Here's the money to go to college. Oh, you're all set? Great.
Yep.
Hilariously enough, I know I'm bringing up Lenin a lot, but Lenin did not have that much social ineptness. He was very socially awkward, yet, according to at least a biography that I read about him, he was actually able to get into power by knowing certain people to help him through.
Yeah.
The Bolsheviks versus the Mensheviks.
Yep.
That'd be hilarious. Just like, oh, you know Lenin? Yeah, that awkward kid.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's help him along a little. I know, I think we should.
Oh God, what did we do? But going back to something you said, the way you were describing oppression, it was the idea of, not allowing you to do things or stopping you from doing things. I think that is a pretty good definition of oppression in general. It's the idea of you are being stopped from doing things.
You are stopped from the opportunity to progress in your life.
Yeah.
And the biggest one I see is going back to the India thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that if you are just said from birth, oh, you deserve to be this way, so we're just going to ignore you.
Yeah.
Especially when you go to like the untouchables.
Yeah.
That's just not fair.
Yeah.
I don't think it's that bad anymore in some areas.
Yeah. The more
Even
traditional areas you go into, the worse it is.
Even, I don't know, there's still just stigma about it.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, you're a child of an untouchable? Well, I
Mm.
guess I can give you a job. It's just like, even if it's a passing thought, it's not fair.
Well, that's just so wrong, I think. Just because you're born into a certain situation.
Yes, that's
Welcome
what we're
to
saying.
everything in the world.
It just
Yeah.
sucks.
Indubitably.
It's the same idea behind, like, in America, for instance.
It's not Denzel Washington's son.
Yeah, well, the idea here
It's
is
not?
the
No, it's
original.
not.
Going back to the original idea of like the American dream is that if you work hard, you will be successful. But the problem is that means that a lot of people take that to mean that if you're not successful, it means that you were lazy. And that's just not true. You can work very, very hard and just not be successful.
And there's
The way is don't work hard, work right.
But still, the idea is there. If you are unlucky in your life, if your adventures just don't work, the American ideology is you deserve that because if you were doing it right, you would have succeeded.
And that goes into the whole dynamic of, oh, you're poor? Work, damn it, or I'm not going to give you any money for welfare.
Oh,
Yeah,
Good.
and well, to add to what Toby's been saying, I mean, I find it funny that okay, shit, I forgot what I was gonna say. God damn it.
May I say
Stop
something?
cursing.
May I say something quickly?
Collect your thoughts.
Going back to something you were just saying, the welfare system is actually specifically designed to keep people in welfare. And I can explain this very simply. It's the idea that, like, minimum wage. Minimum wage is a tool that's actually designed to keep people poor. Because they set minimum wage at just the right level that if you're on minimum wage, you need food stamps and welfare to actually survive, especially with a family. So if you ever reach the point where you're no longer eligible for food stamps, you lose that, but you're not yet making enough money to sustain yourself. So you go back down and you end up on food stamps again. There's this gap that if you can't somehow bridge it very quickly, you are stuck below this level. And the economic system in America is specifically designed to keep people in that lower bracket and not this one.
I think that welfare shouldn't be, I mean, I think he has a point. I've never looked at it that way.
I lived through it for 21 years. I've known everyone I know dealt with it. That's how things work. If you have a chance to get above this bracket, the system is designed to kick you back down into it.
Yeah, I'd like
to keep people poor.
I'd like to say that
because poor people are who don't have a chance to get more educated.
Yeah. Poor people rely on the rich. If you're poor enough, you rely on the rich people, so you never have a chance to not rely on them again.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I remember what I was going to say. I find it funny that one of the selling points that we have for America, why we get a lot of immigrants as opposed to any other country, is because we have freedom. Now, truthfully, we don't have
price.
We don't have.
We have freedom for a price.
No, but the thing is, there's no such thing as true freedom. If there was true freedom, that means we have no rules. If we don't have any rules, we might as well be up in trees flinging crap at each other.
Okay, fair enough.
Like I said, freedom, but with a price.
Exactly, because there are still some things you can't do. You just have more freedom than what other countries have.
Sure. What is it? Freedom is just another word for nothing else to lose?
Exactly.
What if we had complete freedom? We wouldn't even have freedom because...
Anarchy.
Think of it. Anarchy? Oh, I'm going to stab you in the back. Oh, well, then I'm going to get my friend Bob to blow bazooka at you. Like, there's always going to be some structure to it anyway.
Anarchy always ends up restructuring into a different form of government.
Exactly.
Yeah, I don't even know of a period of time where a country was just ungoverned for a significantly long amount of time.
No, because someone went, hey, stop it. No matter what, it happens because you can't not.
One thing I was going to mention, though, is the trickle-down idea. This is a thing that was posted on Facebook for a while. So it's kind of like...
the trickle-down theory is the idea if we give them enough, maybe they'll give us some back.
Oh, no, like the way it was worded was beautiful. The trickle-down effect is effectively the poor have to subside on the table scraps of the rich. So we should give the rich bigger meals.
Yeah.
I remember there was an image about that where there was this one guy at the top and he was eating like this huge massive meal and he was sitting on a toilet and the toilet literally fell off at the next two people and they were eating his shit and that shit went down
but that is the idea of trickle down.
Only one strata of people actually get anything.
Or trickle-down theory as in somebody is pissing on somebody else.
Thank you.
As much as I love talking about the rich species, the next guy, but we got to think about wrapping this up soon.
Yeah, we actually do. We have 5 minutes. Okay, so the way that this is structured is we had the opening statements, we had open discussion, and now we all just give our general closing statements. The subject, again, is oppression. So you can say whatever you like about the subject. And you can say your name, I guess.
Freedom's not free.
Thank you, Joe. Next person.
I'd like
I go last. So.
I'd like to say that oppression is always going to happen, unfortunately, because of the whole anarchy thing, and we are always susceptible to wanting to hold power.
I would like to believe that oppression is not going to be too bad, but like you said, there's always going to be some kind of oppression, no matter how much of a perfect society we try to be.
I simply want to say that instead of thinking about the absolution of oppression, simply, again, understanding what oppression is, and the idea that oppression is just psychology. So understanding how people think, how you think, is a very important step to helping to curb that.
Okay. I see oppression as a constant throughout human history. But the one thing that we all have to try to remember as people in a university, we are people, and yes, Colvin, including you in this, we are people of privilege, that we're actually able to get into the situation.
Yeah.
So we have to use the abilities that we have and this wonderful foundation that we've been given to, first off, not oppress anybody, and use our influence to stop oppression from others as much as we can.
I agree.
Indeed.
We are the Drexel Freethought Society. Oppression...
Free.
So.
Oppression free. Oppression is bad. And before I say something stupid to diminish that, we're done. Email us at drexelfreethought.com, or drexelfreethought at gmail.com. Actually, it's drexfreethought@gmail.com. Or find us on our website, doesn't matter. Thank you all for joining us. Have a nice day.
Indubitably.